Hello and welcome to Indie Business Radio. I'm your host, Donna Maria, and you have arrived at the one place where we empower you to enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way. Today's show is brought to you by our Indie Business Facebook group, where there are lots of photo galleries of you and your products and services, plus links to many of the shows I've brought you over the years right here on Indie Business Radio. To join us, just go to Facebook and search on Indie Business in the upper right-hand corner. It will take you right to us. I look forward to seeing you there and to bringing our Indie Business breakfast to your town as well. My sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Pollock, always told us, good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is your best. I never forgot those words, and I call them to mind over and over again. Whether it's with regard to parenting my children, being the best wife I can be, or leading my business, I always hear Mrs. Pollock reminding me never to settle for good or better, but to always aim for the best. Our guest today feels the same way. His name is Michael Bungay Stanier, and he is the author of Find Your Great Work. Michael is a popular speaker at business and coaching conferences, and he's also the creator of the Get Unstuck and Get Going on the Stuff That Matters, a multi-award-winning coaching program and tool that's been used in organizations around the world. He joins us today to share his tips and insights on doing your best work. Welcome to Indie Business Radio, Michael.
Donna Maria, thank you very much. It's great to be here, and I know that our sound guy has helped. They said that I'm a bit quiet, so I'm going to endeavor to speak up as much as possible.
Oh, good.
It's metaphor for life, right? You got to make a statement and be heard.
That's right, and we just have to be flexible and work with the technology, and I know we've got a chat room going, so we're going to get some great questions and insights from the people that are joining us. Welcome to everyone who's joined us in our chat room. So, Michael, this book is really insightful and very helpful for those of us who are just, don't want to deal with the ho-hum and the humdrum, or we really want to do something great. So tell us, why do people need a book on this topic?
Well, what I've found, and I work with people individually, with people who are in organizations, with people who are running their own businesses, is that increasingly the way technology is changing and the way our lives are changing, it feels that we are getting faster and faster, and we are more and more overwhelmed. I mean, I wonder if there's anybody who doesn't go to bed going, man, I have too many emails to answer, I have too many voicemails to get to, I have some projects that I haven't had a chance to get to yet. And there's a sense of, for most of us, a sense of overwhelm. And really the book, Find Your Great Work, which talks about 3 different types of work you can be doing, bad work and good work and great work. Really what this book is about is to provide practical solutions and practical strategies to help people make better choices about what they say yes to and what they say no to, so they can really focus on the stuff that matters, that makes an impact in their lives, that makes them happier, and deal with all the other stuff that consumes their time and consumes energy and is not as productive as they might hope it would be.
And Michael, you say that there are 3 kinds of work, bad, good, and best. Can you divide those up for us and
Sure.
give us some tips on how we can really focus on the best and get rid of all the clutter? Because you're right, there's so many distractions.
Right, exactly. So let's share those definitions, and then we can talk about different ways to decide how to manage what's coming at you. So we start with bad work. Now, everybody knows bad work. It is the work that is sort of meaningless. It takes up energy, it takes up time, it consumes your attention, and it really adds no value to what you're doing, and it really adds no sense of meaning to your own life. It's the work that, if you ever stopped and thought about it, you would say, I never want to do another piece of this work ever again in my life. And I've got some examples of what that looks like. There's a hi-fi retailer in the UK, and they're called Richer Sounds. They're very successful. They've been in the Guinness Book of Records now for years because they generate the highest sales per square foot in their stores. And they have something called a Cut the Crap Committee. And the Cut the Crap Committee just goes, we know organizations have this ability to generate work that is bureaucratic and time-consuming and, just sort of weighs you down with this sort of stuff that doesn't add value in your life. And the point of the Cut the Crap Committee is to hunt that stuff down and try and eliminate it. Another way of thinking of bad work is this. It's the acronym WOMBAT. Now, even though I live in Toronto, Canada now, I was Australian by birth. I am Australian. And a wombat, of course, is an Australian animal. But what I love about WOMBAT is what it stands for. And WOMBAT stands for a waste of money, bandwidth, and time. So basically, if you're thinking of your own work, as the listeners are thinking about how they spend their time, and they're thinking, I could probably do with a Cut the Crap Committee in my own life, then what the Cut the Crap Committee is doing is hunting wombats, trying to eliminate those wastes of money, bandwidth, and time. Donna Marie, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. And I'm thinking, I love the Cut the Crap Committee. But you know what? Let me ask you this before we move on to the best, because it's hard to know what is crap and what's not crap, for lack of a better term, because sometimes you don't know what's valuable until after you've already tried it and discover that it's not valuable, right?
Right. I think that's absolutely right. And here's the key challenge with all of this work, is that the real challenge we have is that we don't actually spend a great deal of time thinking about work these days. We're so overwhelmed. What we do is we spend our time managing the overflow, and we spend our time processing work, just getting through it. And really the key thing is creating some time and some space to actually step back and go, what work does matter? What work will make the difference? Of all the things I could focus on, where will I put my time and energy and attention?
So let me ask you this, because what I think I may be hearing, tell me if I'm wrong, is that sometimes we undervalue just the sitting and thinking process that we have to go through to decide what's worth doing and what's not doing, as opposed to just rolling up our sleeves and doing it. Step back and think about it for a while.
Exactly. So I'll give you something that backed that great insight up, Donna Maria, and it's this. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, the Harvard Business Review published an article called Beware the Busy Manager. And what they found in this article was that 90% of managers waste their time doing busy work. Mm-hmm. And they looked at the 10% that didn't, and they found that the 10% that didn't had the right combination of focus and energy. So they managed their own personal energy, and they were focused on what was important. And when they delved down into the characteristics of that top 10%, they discovered that one of the things that top 10% did was they protected their thinking time, limited their communications, and protected their thinking time. So it's absolutely critical. For you to know what to focus on, you actually need to step back from the hurly-burly and actually have a think about, of all the things that I could be doing, what matters most to me.
Well, it sounds like then what may be worth some of our time is to actually carve out a particular amount of time every week where we really do that. We think, we disconnect not from our businesses, but from the communication, as you said, and just think about how we can move into that 10%.
Right. So, I know a number of your readers will have heard of David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done. And, he's, in North America, certainly, he's a sort of the productivity guru. And I, in fact, work with David as his creativity questions coach as part of his membership site. And one of the things that's at the heart of David's system is what he calls the Friday Review. And that Friday Review is a place of processing the stuff that's come into your life, into your inbox, and also having a think about what really matters. Where do I need to be putting my attention to? So you're absolutely right, Donna Maria. Holding some time and space to do this planning is critical, because otherwise you're just doing, and that means you're exhausted and tired and burnt out. And most importantly, perhaps, you may not be doing the work that makes the most difference.
Wow. Okay. All right. So those are some really good tips to avoid the bad work. Now let's talk about the good work, which isn't bad, but it's great either.
Yeah, we have two types of work left. We have good work and we have great work. And so the definition of good work is this. It is the work that you are doing most of the time. It is work that is efficient. It is work that, if you're running a business, which I know many of the people listening to this are, it is the work that makes a profit. You do it well. You do it without making too many mistakes, which is great. But here's how you know that you've got a lot of good work on your hands. Imagine you're driving home on a Friday afternoon. You've worked really hard all week. You put in 40 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours, and as you're stuck in the traffic somewhere and you're thinking about the week that's just passed, you think to yourself, I can't remember a thing I did all week. The whole week has vanished. And what's happened is this. It's not that that's a bad thing, but your brain, your active brain, your conscious mind only has a limited capacity, and it keeps itself as free as possible so it can stay focused on great work. And all the other work, the familiar, comfortable rut work, which is one definition of good work, gets shoveled into the unconscious mind as fast as possible. So there's nothing wrong with good work. Good work is critical. You need good work because that's where the money comes from. It's a place of comfort. It's a place of efficiency. But you don't want to be doing only good work. You need a little bit of great work.
You know what this makes me think about? I'm sorry for putting food analogy in here, but you know what? It's just the other day my children asked me, what I had for dinner a couple of days ago, and I couldn't remember.
Right.
But whenever I have something that's really good, that I really feel good about, that's really tasty and also nutritious, I tend to remember that. Is that like a simplified analogy that somehow fits in here too?
That totally works, because great work is work that is meaningful and inspiring and engaging and memorable for you. So you're absolutely right with that analogy, Donna Maria. Of course, the challenge with great work is that just as it is exciting, because if you imagine, or your readers imagine times where they've done great work, and they will be able to bring those examples up, these are times where you're feeling engaged and excited and sort of in that flow stage, and time stands still and all of that great stuff. But the truth is, great work is also scary. It's also unknown. It is you stepping out to be on the edge of who you are. So we have this tension, and it exists both on a personal level, but also at an organizational level, whether you're in a big company or whether you run your own small company. There is this hunger to do more great work, more work that is inspiring and meaningful, work that at an organizational level is more strategic and differentiating and challenging and helps you separate yourself from your competitors. That's what great work does at an organizational level. But at the same time, we have this attraction, this pull to do, just stay safe with the good work, because that's work that's familiar and known, and we get praise and we get feedback on that really quickly. So we have this tension, and that's what the book Find Your Great Work is about, which is around how do you manage that tension.
So, how do you overcome that fear? And I think it manifests itself, right, Michael, in so many different ways. And for women who make up a large part of my listening audience, and in your work with women, do you find that manifests itself in a way that really keeps us just a tiny step away from that great work that we really want to do, that fear of the unknown?
Well, yeah, that is absolutely right. Again, you've got a really great insight here, Donna Maria, around one of the things, probably the biggest thing that keeps us trapped in not enough great work is a fear of, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if this will work. It is truly stepping out into that edge of self-knowledge, the edge of knowledge about the world, and it is a place of unknown. And I say in the book, and I think this is critical for people to hear, that forget all the tactics to get into great work. Fundamentally, you need two core parts of your character. The first part is focus. You need to know what great work is for you. You need to be questing or hungry for it and trying to figure out what is the work that engages me, that is meaningful for me. And then what you need is the courage to pursue that. And, of course, courage is the counterbalance to fear.
Oh, great. So focus and courage. We're going to come back after our first break and talk with Michael, the author of your great work. And this is a fantastic book. And, Michael, I compliment you, too, because it was such a fast read, so easy to read. And for those of you who are on Twitter, you can feel free to tweet the show and let your friends know that you're here listening to Michael, and you can check him out at his Twitter page at Box of Crayon. So we'll be seeing you in just a few minutes when we come back from our first break. This is Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Why is everyone listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com? Because it's the future of talk radio. Every day, more and more people are finding Internet radio as not just an alternative media, but as a replacement to traditional AM and FM broadcast stations. Internet radio offers a wider variety of programs, convenient on-demand listening that meets your schedule, and fewer commercial interruptions. And GlobalTalkRadio.com is already leading the way by matching this content with a highly targeted Internet audience. GlobalTalkRadio.com offers its listeners one of the widest programming varieties on the Internet, from business and finance to self-improvement, paranormal, health, literature, romance, politics, and more. There are also opportunities for prospective hosts who would like to host their own weekly or one-time talk shows. Want to learn more? Check us out at www.globaltalkradio.com and see the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio. We're here this afternoon with author Michael Bungay Stanier, and he is the author of Find Your Great Work, napkin-sized solutions to stop the busy work and start doing the work that matters. And before we took our first break, Michael was sharing with us the two things we need to do to move from good work to great work, and their focus and courage. So, Michael, can you talk a little bit about getting that focus that we need? Because we're indie business owners. We're wearing all the hats in our business, and focus for that reason is especially difficult to come by.
Yeah, and, I'm a small business owner myself, so I certainly understand that trying to do everything. And, Donna Maria, when we've talked before, you've said many of the listeners to the show and within this network are women. And my hypothesis is that it's particularly difficult for women who have many women have a strong, nurturing, do everybody else's work before I do my own work, gene in them. And managing that is part of the challenge around managing great work. So you talk about focus. So there are two places you might choose to focus. The first place is to understand what it is that truly lights you up. So this is a sense of what are my values, what's most important to me, what's the thing that really is critical to my own sense of fulfillment and my own sense of happiness. And, that is that's a lifetime quest of self-knowledge to figure out what it is that you're most best at, what are your strengths, what it is that you might look to find out what really makes you tick. And I can give your listeners some resources right away where they might like to check it out.
Please.
The first place they might like to go to is something called, it's the Strength Survey. And if they Google VIA Strengths Survey, VIA Strength Survey, they'll go to a web page based on positive psychology. And this is a terrific free survey. The VIA stands for Values in Action. And by completing the survey, which will take about 10 minutes, you need to register, but it's free. You'll get a sense of what your top 5 strengths are. And knowing what your top 5 strengths are is really important because the studies show that happiness comes from spending time playing to your strengths. So that's one place people might look at. Another place a book that people might like to get hold of is called Is Your Genius at Work? Is Your Genius at Work? And it's by a guy called Dick Richards. And it's a terrific book with exercises to help you figure out, well, what is my genius? What is it about me that's particularly special and particularly unique? Because, for many of us, we take our own skills and our own strengths a bit for granted because they don't seem that special. And you actually need some sort of validation to help you figure out, actually, the things I do here, that's what some of the things that make me unique. Mm-hmm. And, of course, people can check out findyourgreatwork.com to get access to the book and some other free downloads connected with my book as well. So, Donna Maria, that's one place to focus, which is you need to know yourself and you need to have a sense of your own strengths as a place to focus and to be focused on how do I do that and how do I not do the other stuff.
Okay.
Second place to focus, particularly if you're a business owner, is what are the things that I can do that will make the difference? What are the things that I can do that will make the most difference? And the challenging thing in being a small business owner is there are 1,000 things you can put onto your to-do list that will keep you busy and occupied. The challenge is figuring out which ones to actually pay attention to. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, a lot of us who are small business owners are concerned about sales. How do we make sales? And how do we market ourselves so that the market we're trying to attract finds out about us? And in my opinion, this is just one person's opinion, but in my opinion, you can spend an awful lot of time and money and energy focused on the activities that don't make that much difference. So, for instance, in my opinion, spending a lot of time and effort and money on a website and investing a lot of time in your brand on your website is actually not a good use of your time and effort and money. It's not to say you don't want to have a website, because you do, mm-hmm. but it's so easy to say, I have had a really busy day today. I've spent another 10 hours tweaking my website and twittering about it and doing this and doing that.
Right.
And the real question you need to be asking yourself is, of all the things I could be doing that will drive sales or will have an impact as a marketer, what are those things? And, of course, for many of those, these are slightly scary things. They're like trying to get writing and trying to get your writing noticed so people can build relationships with you and trust through you to your writing. It might be trying to do public speaking. It might be trying to get onto a radio interview like we're doing right now. But those are a bit scary and a bit unknown and a bit uncomfortable. So we default to the safety of, I'm going to spend more time designing my business card. Business cards don't bring you business.
Right.
So that's another example of what focus might be.
Okay, so it sort of goes back to that comfortable spot. In order to focus, you have to move out of your comfortable spot.
Well, yeah, great work, not totally. So what you're looking for, Donna Maria, is you're looking for the right balance between good work and great work. Because you need good work. Good work is productive, efficient, profitable. It's going to be earning you your money. But you also need great work, because great work is both how your company grows and how you grow. And the decision you face on a sort of daily basis is, what's the right mix for me now? How much good work? How much great work? And, of course, in my belief is that for most of us, we have too little great work at the moment and too much good work.
Okay, all right. So good work is something that that's an interesting perspective. That good work is not made bad just because it's not great.
Oh, totally. There are some years that should be good work years where you go, I just need to be productive and efficient this year. It's a harvesting year. And so I'm after 20% great work, 80% good work. That's the right mix for me. Other years you may be going, this is a year for growth, for stepping out, for trying new things, for stretching our boundaries. And I'm after 40% great work and 60% good work, or whatever it might be for you. It's different for different people at different times. But you want it to be an active choice, not a default choice where you just end up squeezing whatever great work you can into the cracks of your life.
Well, Michael, that's really interesting because it helps us to quantify, and it also reminds people that it's okay for it to change and it shouldn't be static and stay the same all the time. For example, when my children were very, very young, when they were infants and breastfeeding, then I really only had a lot of time for good work. I didn't have a whole lot of time for the great. So what you're saying is that we should try, through the seasons of our life, to quantify it in a way that makes sense for us.
Exactly. And the truth is that your definition of what great work is evolves over time as well.
Okay.
So, you may say, look, when my children were young and they needed my full-time care, for me, doing great work was looking after those children.
Right.
Or maybe that wasn't true. Maybe you say, when my kids were growing up, I love my kids, but, they're good work, they're not great work. Great work is being an entrepreneur. But I had 10% space for being an entrepreneur, and I had 90% devoted to running my household and looking after my kids. It truly does shift and evolve depending on where you are at the moment. What I'm so passionate about, Donna Maria, is make sure it's an active choice, not just an accidental way that your life's fallen into.
Right, because that passivity is what can ultimately, you look back over a year and go, I didn't do anything great.
Exactly.
So I like that though, and I wonder what everyone in the chat room. We have a lot of people in the chat room today. I like the quantification, Michael, because it really gives us something practical when we go into that thinking place that you said we should go into every now and then. So we can almost draw a big circle, a pie chart, and at least this may not be the ultimate way to do it, but a good place to start, right, would be to just sort of quantify in your mind, at least visually, what percentage of good work you're doing, what percentage of great work you're doing, and what you're accomplishing in both of those areas.
Right, so that's actually one of the exercises from the book, which is find out where you are now. And this is the exercise, just as you explained it. Draw a big circle on a bit of paper, and thinking about the mix for you at the moment between bad, good, and great, divided into 3 segments that represent how much bad work, how much good work, and how much great work. And, as you said, Donna Maria, write down an example or 2 of each type of work. And what that does is just ground you in, this is reality now. And then the question is this what I want? Is this the way I want to be spending my time at the moment? Or do I want to have a little bit more great work? Do I want to have a little less bad work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. And of course I did get that from the book. So no, that's a really great way to do it. And I mentioned it because it's just so easy. Anyone can do it, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to get that big picture.
Well, part of the way the book is written is it has 12 exercises in it to help people find and then start and then sustain doing more great work. And I know people don't have a whole lot of time. They don't have time to spend 6 hours on an exercise. Mm-hmm. And these exercises are all designed so that you can sketch them on the back of a napkin in a coffee shop, because that's where I have some of my best conversations. So all of the exercises are designed that they can be done quickly, but just because they're fast and they're simple doesn't mean they can't be quite profound in terms of shaking things up, in terms of what's going on for me, what choices am I making.
And Michael, we have a few minutes before our next break. Can you give us an example of someone that you've worked with who's used one of those simple exercises to quantify and balance their good and great work?
Yeah, so one of the exercises in it, and we may just get started on it and carry it on after the break, but one of the exercises is called I Care, They Care. So imagine that you draw a cross on a bit of paper, a big cross, and then put a box around it. So now you have 4 squares. And on one axis, say the horizontal axis on the bottom, you write down stuff I care about. And then on the other axis, the vertical axis going up and down, you write down stuff that they care about. And they represent anybody who is asking things of you. It might be your boss, it might be your family, it might be the demands of your company, even though you're the owner of the company. They all have different demands on you. And then on the bottom is the stuff that you're most passionate about. So imagine the stuff on the right where there's a plus sign, that's the stuff that's your great work. And then as you move from right to left to the minus sign, that's the stuff that's your good work and then your bad work. What you do is you map out how you spend your time at the moment on that map. Like, think about the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks. How have you spent 120 hours of those 3 weeks? And what you start noticing is some stuff falls into both plus and plus for stuff that they care about and stuff that you care about, which is awesome, right? Because that's a sweet spot. That's what everybody wants to be doing.
Yeah.
But then you get into some interesting things about, well, what if they care about it? They really want me to be doing it, but I don't want to be doing it. What do you do with those tasks? And with those tasks, you need to be thinking about things like, how do it still needs to be done, but it may not need to be done by me, or it may not need to be done in the way I'm doing it at the moment. How do I do this more efficiently? How do I deliver it at a standard that is adequate, i.e. good enough, but no more than that? Because every time you over-deliver against things that fall into that quadrant, you are wasting time. You are giving your time and energy to somebody else and away from your own great work.
A great way to quantify things. That was an excellent summary, and I know I was drawing a picture while you were talking.
Right.
So that's wonderful. We're going to take our last break and come back and talk more with Michael Bungay Stanier, and he's going to continue to share this great information with us about how to find and do our great work. This is Indie Business Radio. We'll be right back.
Want to stay on top of what's new in the radio industry? Sign up for a free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio, available exclusively to listeners of globaltalkradio.com, and find out what's new in the world of online radio. Listeners can find out about new shows and special guests. People with something special to offer can find out how to become a guest and how to prepare for an interview. And prospective hosts will find a valuable resource for everything from planning their new program to selecting topics and guests, recouping expenses by selling advertising, and more. Sign up today for your free subscription to the Future of Talk Radio by visiting www.globaltalkradio.com and learn about the future of talk radio today.
Welcome back to Indie Business Radio with our guest, Michael Bungay Stanier, the author of Find Your Great Work. And before we took our final break, Michael was sharing some really great exercises that we could do to make sure that we were getting the best balance possible between doing our good work and our great work. And one of the things your book discusses, Michael, is something that you call, sort of focusing on not what you do, but what you do after you've done it as the way to propel yourself forward. Can you describe what you mean by that?
Well, Donna Maria, let me ask you this. Have you ever been on a training course?
Yes.
Of course you have. And here's the question. Where do you think the learning happens in a training session?
The answer is probably after it's done, after you've tried it and made a bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, because this is how the recent studies in adult education and adult learning tell us this. Learning doesn't happen when the instructor explains what's going on. Learning doesn't even happen when you go away and you practice it and you actually do it within your small groups in the training room. The learning only starts to stick when you stop that and you sit down and you go, what just happened? What do I need to remember about what just went on? And this concept of doing a debrief, or what they call in the military an after-action review, is absolutely critical to go, how do I capitalize on what's worked and what hasn't worked from what I've just been doing so that I can do it better and I can do it differently next time? And, of course, the challenge for most of us is we're just so busy that we don't create the time and the space to just step back and go, what do I need to remember from that? What worked well? But they just go on to the next thing. So as an example, after we finish this interview, 10 minutes or so, I have a choice. I can either spend 2 minutes sitting down and going, well, what did I do well? What went well in that interview? What would I do differently? What do I want to remember for next time? Or I can just sit down and start processing emails or doing whatever's calling for my attention straight away. The discipline to actually create the time and the space to do a short debrief around at the end of a project, at the end of a sales call, at the end of interacting with the person who's building your website, whatever it might be, and going, what do I need to remember from this? What went well? What would I do differently next time? What's most important for me to remember? Those are three great questions. Therein lies the ability to learn and develop and evolve and become more efficient and more impactful in the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. And that takes us back again, does it not, to that thinking time that we need to engage in?
Right. It's so important to get off the doing piece and get into the thinking about what you're doing, because that's where wisdom and growth happens.
Yeah, and we so often just don't do that because there's always something that is important that has to be taken care of immediately.
So I created a viral movie called The 8 Irresistible Principles of Fun. And people can see it. It's on the internet for free. It's 8principles.com, and that's the word, not the letter, so not the number. So EIGHT principles.com. And the very first principle is get intensely selfish.
What do you mean by that? Is that, do you mean that in a literal sense?
I mean that in a literal, and it's designed to be a bit provocative, right? Because selfishness has a bad rap in our society. But what I see a lot of people that get in the way of doing great work is they put everybody else first. Everybody else's demands comes before their own needs. And you need a degree of selfishness to be able to protect the time and the energy for you to get the nourishment that you need for a happy life. And I think, I don't mean to be a stereotyping gender here, but I think that's particularly true of women, where there's this degree of part of my role is to serve and support.
Yeah, well, I thought, I don't think you're being unfair or terribly stereotypical, at least not unjustifiably so, because I think I know as a woman myself and working with so many in the Indie Beauty Network that we do deal with that issue. And the fact of the matter is that makes it so difficult, Michael, is that the bulk of, or some of the bulk of, dealing with a lot of the household issues, rightly or wrongly or by accident or on purpose, we end up taking those over.
Right. And, there's one way of defining that the work I do, Don Maria, is helping people create adult-to-adult relationships.
Okay.
And here's a definition of an adult-to-adult relationship. An adult-to-adult relationship is asking for what you want, knowing that the answer may be no. And it is simple and it is difficult. It is simple and it is powerful. Because many of us do a poor job at asking for what we want. We don't feel we're entitled. We don't feel we're able. We may not even know what we want. And that's why it's good to do that focus work about who am I? What makes me tick? What are my strengths? What am I hungry for in this life? And who do I need to ask to see if I can get it? And then the other thing is, if you are asked for something, you are able to say no. You are allowed to say no.
Yeah.
And you know what? It might just be, tell me if this would be useful. Because as soon as you say, look, just say no, everybody goes, you don't understand. It is impossible to say no around here. You know, no is not an acceptable word. But I have a strategy to help people say no when they're not allowed to say no. Would it be useful if I shared that?
Please.
Great. So, here's the insight. The power is not in saying no. Your goal is to say yes more slowly. What kills most of us is we move into default, I will just say yes of any request that's asked of me. And if you can just delay the saying of yes a little bit, there's a solid chance that they will go and find somebody else to do what they've been asking you to do. So there are ways.
So the opportunity could to just take care of itself.
Right. So anything could happen. It could take care of itself. The urgency could go. They could go and find somebody else to do it. They could forget about it altogether. What's critical, though, is you don't end up doing it because you have other things to put your attention to, your great work.
And so as you're doing that, according to your 8 principles, once you sort of, as you say, get selfish, your recommendation is to go ahead and break some rules. Talk to us about that.
Right. So a lot of us carry with us assumptions about how we must do things. And there's a guy called Mike Abrashoff who wrote a fantastic book called It's Your Ship. He's a former U.S. Navy captain commander who ran his own ship. And his ship was by far the most successful, effective, creative, impactful ship in the whole of the U.S. Navy. And he said this about rules. There are 2 types of rules that you can break. There are 2 types of rules. There are those that you can break, and there are those that you can't break. Your first task is to get clear what type of rule is what. You know, can I break this rule? Is that true that I can't break this rule? Is that true that this is really the rule for this situation?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're clear on that, you have a choice. If it's a rule you can break it. If it's a rule you can't break, only break it if you put some real thought into it, real thought about the consequences. But for a lot of us, we make up what we can do and what we can't do. And it's worthwhile stepping back and going, is that true, or is that something I've just made up, and it is limiting me in my beliefs and what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
If people are looking for a good resource around this, another person's work that they might be interested is a woman called Byron Katie. And if you type in the word Byron, B-Y-R-O-N, Katie, K-A-T-I-E, and her company, I think, is called The Work, T-H-E-W-O-R-K. She has some great books and some great processes to help you untangle what am I making up? Right. What are the rules that I'm assuming?
And you also talk about not taking things so seriously.
Right. Exactly. You know, one of the things I do, Donna Maria, is I'm a coach. And I think coaching is extremely powerful and an extremely important skill to have in this world. But the thing that gets up my nose about coaches is that we can all take it all so damn seriously. And one of the things that will bring you more happiness is if you just relax a little bit. Stop treating it like everything's the end of the world and just go, this is a time to enjoy what's going on and to relax and just to not take everything so seriously. And honestly, it increases your sense of freedom.
So sort of like not sweating the small stuff.
Yeah. Sort of like not sweating the small stuff, but even more than that, it's just like, where is the joy and the humor and the fun in what you do? I mean, I called it the 8 principles of fun because I want people to have more fun in their lives. You know, for most of us, it's like everything's just too serious. Relax, lighten up, unclench your buttocks.
And you also talk about getting rid of the crap, and we talked about that a little bit earlier today, but Can that also mean, and I ask this question just because I work with people and also from all kinds of walks of life, as business owners, there are so many other people who come into our lives and turn out not to be good, not just for us, but for our businesses in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it comes down to this. This is the fundamental question at the heart of Find Your Great Work, at the heart of living an authentic life, at the heart of doing work that's meaningful for the world and for you.
Mm-hmm.
It is this. What am I saying yes to? And if I'm saying yes to this, what am I saying no to?
Okay.
Because every yes you make means that you say no to something else. And if you are saying yes to mediocrity or people who suck time and energy or whatever, you are saying no to being able to access more of your own great work.
If you're saying yes to mediocrity, you're saying no to being able to access more of your own great work.
Yeah. Somebody write that down.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually want to make sure I get that into the chat room.
Yeah.
Because that absolutely, because we always think of yes as positive. We must say yes. We must figure out how to say yes. But coming full circle means that when you do that, you're oftentimes losing something.
Yeah, actually saying yes is too easy.
Yeah.
If I could give people listening one wish I have for them is that they get better at saying no.
Mm.
Because if you said yes, you don't have the capacity to say yes to everything. There's too much. So you actually need to get really clear about what's worth saying yes to. And then you need to figure out ways to say no to what's left.
Wow. Okay. That's good. That's really good. And then of course, at the end of the day, we can go through all of these analyses and have all these great things to think about, but we've actually got to roll up our sleeves and do something, because the thoughts and the ideas don't mean much of anything unless they're acted upon, right?
Right. You need courage, you need focus, you need courage, and the courage is about taking the action.
Let's talk about that then in our final segment. Is it just a matter of looking the fear in the eye, acknowledging it, and then just doing it anyway?
I don't think there's a single solution to how to tap into your courage. I think one of them, for sure, is looking at what scares you most, and rather than sort of trying to avoid it, actually look at it and see what happens when you stare at it directly. Because mostly it shrinks and it changes and it evolves and it becomes less fearful than you might think. One of the most powerful questions to ask is, what's really the worst that could happen here? Because we have this tendency to what's called catastrophize, where we tend to imagine the worst that can happen and then assume that that's true. And managing your own catastrophization is a really great way of doing it. Connected with that is managing your inner critic, or what somebody's called your gremlin, that voice in your head that keeps muttering, don't do that, play it safe, you couldn't do that, who do you think you are to even think you could do that? Mm-hmm. And there's another great book I'd recommend to people. It's called Taming Your Gremlin. Taming Your Gremlin by a guy called Rick, R-I-C-K, Carson, C-A-R-S-O-N, Taming Your Gremlin. It's quick, easy to read, and gives you some great insights as to how to manage that inner critic in your own head.
Great ideas, wonderful ideas. So everyone who's listening to the show, you've got to head over to Michael's website and get this book. The exercises are wonderful, and they don't take a long time, and they really do produce a lot of thought-provoking insights to help you pursue your greatest work. Michael, tell us where we can learn more about you and maybe come see you speak in person, download your newsletter, and things like that.
Great. Going to findyourgreatwork.com is a great start. There's bits and pieces about me. There are free resources that people can download. I do a series of podcasts, and so I've got some great people talking about great work that people can listen to. And that's also where I announce my public workshops. If you're interested in seeing some of the viral movies that I've created, and I've created 3 of them, including the 8 Principles of Fun, go to possibilityvirus.com. Possibilityvirus.com. It's called that because my personal mission is to infect 1 billion people with the possibility virus. So even though it's a bit of a weird name for a computer site, it's perfectly safe. And you can also check out some of the movies and some other bits and pieces at possibilityvirus.com.
Great. Possibilityvirus.com and findyourgreatwork.com. And also you can connect with Michael on Twitter at twitter.com/box of crayons.
Exactly.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been fantastic at giving us a whole lot of food for thought here. Coming up next week, great, thank you so much. Coming up next week on Indie Business Radio is my guest, Monique Hayward. She's the author of Divas Doing Business, What the Guidebooks Don't Tell You About Being a Woman Entrepreneur. That's April 20th right here on Indie Business Radio. And incidentally, Monique owns the restaurant where the Indie Business Breakfast in Portland will be held on August the 1st. Our guest speakers there will be Monique and also Kayla Fioravanti. You all know her, many of you, from Essential Wholesale. Fantastic mompreneur who's doing great things in the cosmetics industry. You can join our Facebook group at Indie Business to get all the juicy details. I hope to connect with you next week right here on Indie Business Radio. In the meantime, enjoy your life, build your business, and have your way.
You're listening to GlobalTalkRadio.com.